of the 18th Council of Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him and accept him. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us and you to benefit from his knowledge and his wisdom. And may these gatherings be in his scale of good deeds. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So يقول المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا الله بعلومه في الدارين آمين قد علمت أيها الولد. I'm going to repeat from yesterday just because I want to make sure we have one continuous thought. He says قد علمت من هاتين الحكايتين أنك لا تحتاج إلى تكثير العلم والآن أبين لك ما يجب على سالك سبيل الحق. So we mentioned yesterday in the khatira, in the middle of the night, that Imam Abu Hamid is saying, you've learned from these stories that we've shared with you, and that you are not in need of endless multiplication of knowledge. So it's not that he's saying you don't need to learn. He's saying that, but what if you're interested in your journey in life is genuine growth and development and to have beneficial knowledge, then it's not about volume. There are principal things you need to know that ensure that you are living a righteous and pious life, and the increase of knowledge is not necessarily going to translate into you being an extra pious person per se. So then he says, I want to clarify to you what travelers on the right path should do. So what exactly should you have? What should you possess? He says, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ يَنْبَغِي لِلسَّالِكِ شَيْخٌ مُرْشِدٌ مُرَبٍّ. That it is obligatory for the seeker to have a teacher, a guide, a murabbi, someone that is going to oversee their journey. And just like any space of expertise and growth and development, you need a mentor. It's a very simple logic. You need a mentor. If you're going down a medical track, engineering, if you're becoming a carpenter, any enterprise requires mentorship, teachers, educators, guides. This is just a natural development in the human condition, and the study of the sacred sciences and the journey of spiritual development and growth, sabil al-haq, as Imam Abu Hamid highlights, this path is no different. So the idea that you and I as Muslims, the average Muslim, charts a course in life without having qualified teachers as their notable guides, those that they hold on to. And it could be one or many, by the way, especially in our day and age, the likelihood that is that they are many. You have a few teachers that you're connected with, that you're seeking guidance from, and that they are overseeing your journey. And so if you're journeying in life without teachers, without those who, and I said last night, it's not just that you have someone to take a fatwa from. So the average Muslim, the way they pose questions, fatwa style, I'm living my life, something, I hit a speed bump, you know what, this needs like a religious opinion, let me call a sheikh. Call the sheikh, hey sheikh, what's the opinion on this? Good, thank you, ma'as-salama, I'm going to continue living my life. Without really, scrutinizing the journey in and of itself. Is my career a good career? Am I living a meaningful life? The way I'm managing my home and my family, am I doing a good job? Am I living in a manner truly pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is Islam now just reduced to me living my life as I want it, and then my religion is just something that plays lip service to my journey? You get what I'm saying? And this is a real problem in the Muslim communal space, is because we don't take scholarship very seriously. We don't take Islamic learning very seriously. We take things like medicine very seriously. We take other disciplines very seriously, but not religion. And I mentioned last night a little bit of what the political, social development over a century has been, where through the colonial project, the whole project of Islamic scholarship took a serious hit, because there was no interest in having in the populace an independent power source like the scholars. For example, Shaykh al-Azhar, 150 years ago, the likes of Sheikh al-Dardir and others, when they would be sitting in Al-Azhar, they wield a lot of influence. So for example, the Hakim of that time, he increased the taxes on the merchants around Al-Azhar. If you've been to Al-Azhar, you know, like Khan Khalidi in those areas, there's a lot of small merchants that are selling goods and whatever. So the Hakim of that time raised the taxes. He increased the taxes. So all the store owners, they were distressed. They didn't know what to do. These taxes were really debilitating. So they went to Sheikh Al-Azhar. Imagine, they went to Sheikh Al-Azhar at that time. He said, this is happening. He said, everyone shut down your stores. Just told them, shut down. And the result was that the Hakim had to come to Al-Azhar, sit with Sheikh Al-Azhar, so that he could effectively ask of him to tell the people to turn their, to open up their shops once again. That type of power is not, it's threatening to have that type of influence. When you're able to boycott the economic engine, that's a real problem. Why you see so many people being unsettled today, you're boycotting the economic engine, the system of finances. That's a real problem. So they throw like all the power that they can to discombobulate those efforts. So you imagine that Islamic scholarship, it had a lot of independent influence and power. And the principal reason it had that for centuries on end was because of the endowment system, because of the awqaf. I don't want to get too historical and analytical, but the point being is that because Islamic scholarship had money, in its auspices, that it was not reliant upon anyone. And that's why the endowment system is such a powerful system. And by the way, the reason why, for example, Al-Azhar as an institution had so many awqaf, and it has millions and millions and millions of dollars that span the entire country, the reason being was because of people like you, who just said, you know what, Al-Azhar is of relevance to me. I want to make sure that the youth are able to study, the teachers are taken care of. For example, if you look at the sijillat, the actual records of awqaf, you'll see a waqf that was for children's diet. So, someone put a waqf to make sure that this piece of land that they gave as an endowment would pay off for children's lunch and breakfast and dinner. Someone wanted to make sure that an Azhari student would have a new jubba, a new garment every single year. So there was a waqf just for that. There was a waqf for the kittens and the dogs of Al-Azhar, so that they had someone feeding them and taking care of them. So you have literally millions and millions and millions of dollars that were the endowment of Al-Azhar. So never reliant upon anyone. So Islamic scholarship had his own independent strength. But it's not to be lost on us that we have collectively, in many pockets of the Muslim community, internalized an idea of Islamic scholarship that's subpar. So we will naturally revere the medical doctor, the engineer, the lawyer, the wealthy business merchant. There's a natural inclination to say, wow, this person's a big deal. But that's not as natural when it comes to Islamic scholarship. Until today, you'll still find in pockets in the Muslim community, especially those who come from the Middle East or from the subcontinent, who've been thoroughly colonized, they can never bring themselves to actually respect Islamic scholarship. That's always subpar, lesser than, There's some quality. And I mentioned yesterday the phenomena of in many pockets of the Muslim world, it's the person who gets bad grades that goes into Islamic studies. They score in like 60s and 70s or whatever, shove them into Islamic studies. But those who score in 90s and whatever above, put them into the sciences. And to take this even further, by the way, just to kind of critique a development that maybe you and I are not even thoughtful of, it's not arbitrary that the average Muslim from the Middle East or the subcontinent is somehow in the service industry. And by service industry, I mean medicine, because that's a service. The service industry, I mean engineering, I mean law, I mean all of these service industries that support the economic engine, but you're not a part of the thinking, the thought process, the intelligentsia, not a part of that. That's not a project of a lot of immigrants. A lot of immigrants, they are so honed in and programmed to what? Services. Because it has good money, good quality of life, I can upgrade from whatever I had back home, and ansa nafsi. Forget about myself, just live my life. That's not an arbitrary development. It's not at all. Because it pays you just enough money to feel like, I'm good, I'm settled. But to be invested in an intellectual project, that's why you'll never see Islamic scholarship celebrated, because that's an intellectual project. When you're compelled to sit there and study the Islamic sciences and think about theology and morality and goodness, amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, these key Quranic principles, that's not a desired outcome. The desired outcome is people who just feed the economic engine and they go to sleep and they're concerned about their interests, their pleasures, their pleasure pursuits. That's the actual desired outcome. So Imam Abu Hamid is challenging us, of course, from the 6th century, that if you or I, any of us, want to have a genuine pursuit in this life, where I am traveling sabil al-haq, the pathway of truth, then you better identify your teachers. Have to have teachers. And those teachers, they are your guides, they are your murabbin, they are the ones who hold the mirror up to you. They challenge your status quo, your narratives, your decisions, your thought processes. So make sure that this becomes a concern of each and every single one of you. If we're on this journey of ayyuhal walad al-muhib, then we're going to make sure that we empower scholarship, that we invest in scholarship, and that we take as our own guides, teachers and scholars. He says, لِيُخْرِجَ الْأَخْلَاقَ السَّيِّئَةَ مِنْهُ بِتَرْبِيَتِهِ. And that principal duty of the teacher and the guide, and let's say the culture of scholarship, is that it removes from the hearts and minds of the individual bad qualities, bad character, bad thoughts. You know, often, I'll be honest, often in the communal space, it's this really weird dance of negotiating very inflated egos. A lot of inflated egos. And you have to handle people with a velvet glove. So people will come, they have a problem, it's a marital problem, it's a business problem, someone who comes in and their ego is inflamed, fully inflamed. They haven't taken any anti-inflammatories, they're just coming in. And to negotiate that person is very hard. You have to hold a hand, you have to handle them with a velvet glove. Or someone necessarily doesn't have a big ego, but they come in and their problem is that they're ready to leave your office or your guidance in the drop of a dime. You say something they don't like, they're done. Just say something I don't like. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. If I'm talking to people about their problems, often in marriages and other spaces, and I hold the spouse's feet to the fire just a little bit, next to the candle, forget about a fire. I just put their foot next to a candle. They're gone, never hear from them again. Why? No, I'm good. I don't want to talk to that sheikh again. Why? What did he say? Nothing. I don't want to deal with him. He got an ego trip. I don't want to be told different from what I want and what I know. Effectively, people are coming to see like, okay, I'll see what this sheikh can do for me to help resolve my problem. But the way they are a good sheikh who resolve my problem, ala hawaya, as I like things. But if you're not towing my line, I don't have to listen to you. And that's one of our realities. The reality is, like, people will come to me and they'll cry. They'll cry, bloody murder, sheikh, this is wrong, I'm being oppressed. What can I do? What can I do? I can give nasiha, I can give advice, I can tell people you're playing with fire, you're going to incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you go to the courts and you take that money that's haram, that's not due to you, it's going to be a curse on you and it's going to be a pathway to the hellfire. And that person's like, good, thank you, go. Straight to the courts. Couldn't care less what you have to say. Do you see how compromised we become as a community? If we are truly seeking sabil al-haq, the pathway of truth, then we're going to empower our Muslim intelligentsia, those who actually know something about this, to say, hey, listen, I surrender my thought processes and my definitive outlook on things to those who know better than me. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of remembrance. And principally what Abu Hamid is saying, Sayyidina Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he's saying that someone who's going to purify your character, someone who's going to check your ego. No matter, and it's very easy to get a huge ego in our day and age, especially in the West, as we are people who have access to a lot of wealth and influence. Because money immediately makes you feel like you've elevated and that you can look down and you don't have to factor or consider. Especially when you feel like you are the one that is needed. Because Ahlul Mal, one of the fitan for them is that they feel that they are the ones needed. You know, because a part of it, you want me to get really blunt and uncensored about this? It's one of the realities of the American Muslim institution that the Islamic organizations have become so reliant upon the donations. So what do you think that creates in terms of a power dynamic? An unhealthy one. Constantly begging the community to give, constantly begging the community to give, running after the people of money, give. Versus when Islamic scholarship had its own money, they were very wealthy. The endowments took, scholarship did not have to ask for a penny. Imagine if you and I grew up in a culture where you didn't have fundraisers the way you have. Imagine what that would look like. Because we subconsciously don't realize how much power and influence we've given to Ahlul Mal. And I'm not belittling people who have money. Allahumma barik. We need all of it. We need all the resources, the skill sets, the know-how, the knowledge. But we have to communally be invested in a power dynamic that ensures that Islamic scholarship is what reigns supreme in our day-to-day outlook on life. How I think about my marriage, how I think about my job, my pursuits, my expenditures, my behaviors, my akhlaq, the quality of my person. So I hope and pray you understand the significance of what Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, and why after we just listened to all these 8 benefits that Hatim al-Asam mentioned about his time with Shaqiq al-Balkhi, and they were very profound, those 8, alhamdulillah, we went through them. You see that he's starting with, well, make sure you have a teacher, because it's all about how Shaqiq al-Balkhi, what he imparted to Hatim al-Asam over 30 years of wisdom. And you find this constantly, musahabatul ulama, the befriending of scholars, and how what it did to them. You know, you look at the likes of Imam Malik and his teacher Rabi'atul Ra'i, Ibn al-Qasim and then his teacher Imam Malik, and you see the dynamics that played out. And each one of them said the same thing. Imam Malik's mom as he was a young boy, put his imam on his head, says, go to Rabi'a, وَخُذْ مِنْ أَدَبِهِ قَبْلَ عِلْمِهِ. Take from his adab, from his comportment, his character. I want you to be mitrabbi, قَبْلَ عِلْمِهِ, even before his rote knowledge. Ibn Qasim says that I spent with Imam Malik X amount of years, 20 plus years. أخذت العلم منه في عامين. I took his knowledge in 2 years, and I spent 20 years في مصاحبته أخذ من أدبه. I took from his adab. So there's a you know, as Imam al-Juwayni says about the talib, the seeker of knowledge, and the categories of what's required from them, he says صحبة أستاذ وطول زماني, that you need the suhbah of an ustad, you need the companionship of a teacher. So brothers and sisters, I want us to all be invested in the project of Islamic scholarship, and each one of you should define and identify yourself, your teachers. Like I said, could be 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't necessarily have to be one principal teacher that you take everything from. Take from teachers. May Allah help us and guide us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. He says, وَمَعْنَى التَّرْبِيَةِ يشبه فعل الفلاح الذي يقلع الشوك ويخرج النباتات الأجنبية من بين الزرع ليحسن نباته ويكمل ريعه. He says that, and the concept of tarbiyah, of development, resembles the farmer's actions. Like the farmer. What does the farmer do? The farmer extracts the thorns and the weeds from amongst his crops so that they may grow better. So the farmer is the one who can identify where are the alien vegetation here that could actually corrupt the entire crop. So this one knows this is a weed, that's a weed, you have to pull this thorn out. If you don't get rid of this weed, then what that's going to result in is a corruption of all of your fruits and vegetables. And often, brothers and sisters, if we're going to be honest, we may not fully be aware or appreciative of why there's aspects of our lives that feel that they're just never getting fixed. Why is it that I'm always having this tension with my spouse or this problem with my children? What's going on? And I'm completely oblivious to the fact that I'm actually riddled with weeds and thorny bushes that are corrupting my entire crop. I just don't understand. I don't see it. And often, brothers and sisters, I'll be honest, when you sit with, when people come to me with their very often basic problems, I was like, I see the problem right there. It's not rocket science. I see it, bright as day. And then you try to explain to the person the actual problem, but their ego will not allow them to relent. No, because they get stuck. They get stuck in an idea. No, I shouldn't have to change. I shouldn't have to compromise. Why should I have to relent? Because you have to think of your net welfare. You have to think of the bigger picture. You have to think of 1, 2, 3, 4. You try to advocate and push and indicate what you should do. If you really want to save your marriage, then pivot big time. Your behavior and your action as a husband, as a wife, has been very poor. You are the principal reason that your marriage is falling apart. Me? Get out of here. You know what I've done for this marriage? Do you know what I've sacrificed? Do you know what I've given? I have given everything. I have been everything. I'm the one who's raised the kids. Really intense, super exaggerated, self-aggrandized narratives. And the problem is I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't see it. And the person just will not relent because they're so dedicated to the idea they have of themselves. I'm telling you, I'm looking at an entire garden of weeds and you think it's a bunch of tulips. But it's all weeds. And that's what Imam al-Ghazali is highlighting. You need someone who's an actual farmer to help you farm. You and I, we've never, farmed one thing. We never, planted a tomato or a cucumber. What are we going to know? But we're going into these huge, think about the fact that the most common thing that people do, which is quote unquote half our deen, and it's one of the biggest real stressors and challenges and pursuits and things that we engage in is marriage. But what is our actual thought process and preparedness for marriage? What type of guidance and insight have we taken for marriage? And I'm not talking, and not to be too controversial, I'm not talking about the standard issue premarital counseling with a therapist or a psychologist. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's blameworthy, but I'm saying it's insufficient and incomplete. And this is from my personal experience. Because it's not just about negotiating terms and learning each other's love languages and how to speak and how to deal with each other's anger. Okay, those are positive things to know and develop. But if you are so ideologically on two different wavelengths, then I don't care how remarkable your love language is. If you're ideologically, if the delta is this wide, it's not going to matter. It's just going to sink. It's a sinking ship. And so there has to be a serious conversation. We have to go to people of knowledge and say, Mashayikh, teach us. Why does one get married? We're all eager and desiring and pursuing it with fervor. Everyone wants it. Well, alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful space, a beautiful thing to have in your life. But what is marriage? How do I conceive of myself as a man in the space of marriage? What does it mean to be a man in a marriage? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a father, a mother, a wife, a husband, as is dictated and guided by the Quran and the Sunnah? Not some academics who are pumping out some untried or tested theory of marriage that really just so far removed from the human condition. I always say a lot of the highfalutin, philosophical ideas of marriage are relevant to the upper class. But talk about the working class and those who are on welfare, they couldn't care less. They just want to survive. Give me help, give me support, I'm drowning. It's usually the places and the spaces where people have luxuries to sit there and think, you know what? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? I'm just bored. My problem is, what I'm really struggling with? I'm suffering in my marriage because I'm bored. Do you know how many people, their marriages fall apart because people are bored? I've just lost interest. I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. Do you understand that impulse is a luxury? The majority of the human condition don't have that luxury to just feel like, I'm just not feeling it, I think there's something else out there for me. The reason you're thinking so luxuriously is because you have more than enough food in the pantry, you have money in the bank, you have comforts. You're not dealing with the day-to-day real grind of life. So you have the luxury. You're not going, trust me, you go to poor countries across the world, you're not going to hear one of them say, you know what, I'm just not feeling this marriage. No, it's very simple. هتأكلني وتشربني ولا لا أنا هموت هجوع عاوز آكل. We literally don't have a roof over our heads. Literally, there's no roof. We're drowning in rainwater. Can you just put a metal sheet? When you're thinking about those basics, and that's the majority of the human condition, by the way, there's no discussion of the luxury of what I feel, what I like, I'm not sure. It is quite alarming, and I don't know why we just shifted entirely into a conversation about marriage, but this is where we are right now. I'll try to pivot back. But I don't think people appreciate that most of the divorces that I'm personally, anecdotally witnessing in my own position, and I've talked to many, many people, I would argue that the overwhelming majority of those divorces do not need to happen. But people don't appreciate that their quote-unquote garden is just a bed of weeds, right? And it's not, and it's more often you than you want to appreciate. And you're not willing to even consider an alternate idea of how to live your life, how to succeed, how to make your husband happy, how to take care of your wife. You're not even willing to consider the possibility of an alternate idea. So you tell me, who have you empowered as your teacher other than your ego? Who have you empowered as your guide other than your nafs? You have an idea that you picked up on growing up, just saturated in our culture, of what it means to have a marriage, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse, by the way, because the bar is completely shot. Now marriage has just become literally a place to realize my customization, the way you customize a home or a car or a video game avatar. That's how people are thinking of marriage. I want someone that I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things with. This is what I like. These are my pursuits. These are my dreams. These are my aspirations. These are my wants. Me, I, because I was told my whole life, have whatever you want. You can live your life. You can have a dream. Dream big. Don't compromise on your dreams, ever. You should never have to compromise. And everyone tells me the same nonsense. But Sheikh, I don't understand. Why should I have to compromise? You don't have to compromise anything, but you can live miserable for the rest of your life. And you can hold on to that nonsensical idea that is completely a fantasy, has nothing to do with reality, but you were just, someone sat there pumping your ego, telling you can have everything you want. And so now you're going out into the marketplace, hey guys, I'm here. And I want everything I want. Yalla, let's fall in love. There's not going to be, trust me, that's not the recipe for love. And so I'm just using this example. I'll jump back into the actual substance of what Imam Abu Hamid is talking about here. But I'm just using that as an example to highlight this idea of seek actual knowledge and wisdom. I was visiting a community upstate New York not too long ago, and they don't have a sheikh. So they said to me, Sheikh, we have so many questions, we have so many needs, and we have this, that, whatever. And we don't have a sheikh or a scholar. Could we Zoom you in just to talk and whatever? I said, listen, for big questions, fatawa, call me anytime. But I actually told them, I was like, listen, can I tell you something honestly? The majority of life wisdom, just the basic wisdom that leads to good life, the collective here actually likely possesses 90% of it. Because it's not rocket science. Life is actually very simple. How to have a good marriage is actually simple. It's very simple. It's not complicated. We have just very thoroughly complicated it. But we have the collective wisdom. Like if we really empowered the collective, I would argue if we empower this whole room, and especially sending the elders who've had experience in life, who've been through marriage and life, and they've seen their children go through marriage, and they've watched their children go through divorce, or they've been through divorce, have they seen, the messiness of it. There's a collective wisdom that could say, you know what? This is what you really need to have to ensure a healthy marriage. So we do have collective wisdom. It's there. It's accessible to just know how to do these things, but we have to seek it. And I believe that this is what Abu Ahmad al-Ghazali is principally telling his student. Seek beneficial knowledge. احرص على ما ينفعك. Be keen on that which brings you benefit in your life. And that, by the way, happens whether it's in marriage. Wallahi, it's about your career. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to say something that's so counter-cultural when it comes to young people and education. Do not follow your dreams. Okay? And I say that sincerely. Wallahi, don't follow your dreams. Do not do that. I don't encourage it. I haven't seen it work out well for overwhelming majority of people. Most of the young people I know are suffering because they're following their dreams. And I mean that. I am not saying be a bum or a loser or not be ambitious. I'm saying don't follow your dreams. Because the likelihood, when you concocted your dream? When did you concoct your dream? How old were you? 10, 12, 15, 16? What the heck do you know at those age groups? And you're literally setting out your course for your dream. And it's so misguided and misinformed. It's so misguided and misinformed. Empower people who know better than you, who have experience, know-how, knowledge, and say, listen, I'm really thoughtful about this. I was told that. I considered this. Because everywhere you go, what are young people always told? Every phase, they're just inflated a little bit more. Every grade, you can change the world. You can go anywhere, be anything. You can. And then we leave young people like these disconnected amoebas floating around in existence, have no idea what they're doing. They're like this, boom, boom. I don't know. Help me. I'm trying to. Okay, I believe this is my dream. I believe my dream is here to become a doctor. But that's not a pursuit in life. You don't pursue your dreams. I said this the other day, and one of the brothers said, so Sheikh, if I'm not pursuing my dreams, what am I doing? That's a very productive question, by the way. That's a good question. What are you doing? What do you do with your life and time and your energy? What do you do with your resources? You serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what you do. You're a servant of Allah. The question is, how can I, Yasir Fahmi, be the best servant of Allah, given who I am, where I am, my abilities, my know-how, my resources, everything. What is the best thing for Yasir Fahmi to do to be a servant of Allah? And I absolutely want a community of dedicated and committed and spirited and invested community members who are, I just gave a khatir on ICPC Clifton about فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. When you finish one responsibility, jump into the next. We want a community that's buzzing like a beehive, always in motion. But what are we doing and why? I don't want a community. Imagine if all the bees in the beehive were following their dreams. Imagine. No honey. No pollination. What as if every bee is out there. Who knows where they're going? You stopped a random bee, laugh in. Allah, I'm following my dreams. I saw this flashy car over there. Looked, maybe it could be pollinated, I don't know. It's like I'm going to break new ceilings in the pollination project. And we celebrate that nonsense all the time in our culture. We've gone into new spaces, new endeavors. First time, first ever, first time, first ever, first time ever. And we hear that and we soak it up. It's like, Allahu Akbar. First time, never happened before. First time, this person, that person. That. Who cares first time that they went to this or that? What does that mean for the beehive? Do you understand that when you buy into narratives that are just tropes, they're just empty ideas. You have to break the glass ceiling. What does that mean? What does it entail? What are the consequences? Why is that relevant to you? Why do you have to break a glass ceiling? أنا مالي ومال ceilings. Why is it relevant to me, Yasir Fahmi? Or to Khadija, or to Ahmed, or to Fatima? Why? Why have I been told that this is what you pursue? Because the only reason that it becomes relevant is because somehow there's an audience out there of a bunch of NPCs celebrating for me. Who are gonna celebrate me because yeah, you like this? You like that I accomplished this thing that you guys told me to accomplish? Yes. Do you understand why that is such a bad idea? Because it's not your idea. It's not yours. It's not informed by, and it's not about by you. I don't mean that your ideas are the best ideas. I mean, it's not coming from a moral authority. As philosophers will say, a virtue ethic. The virtue of your pursuits have to be identifiable. In human history, the civilizations that thrived and thrived exponentially are those who had a virtue ethic. They had a narrative that was predicated upon the idea of a moral code that extended well beyond us as individuals. So it's beyond imperative, an imperative now to identify teachers and guides who will pluck the weeds from your thought process and your life and help you actually have a garden. And I'll say this, and the young people may find what I'm saying to be a little bit too contentious and rub them the wrong way, and that's fine. That's good. We need to agitate a little bit. All this raha and everyone just being appeasing of one another, that's not really helping us. So take it from me, I love you whether you like me or not, but I love you. And I care about you, and that's why I'm saying this, and that's why I'm putting myself out there, and I don't mind being slightly controversial. I don't care about the consequences or the trending. I'm not, doing that nonsense. But if you talk to elders who've now been through a process of life, and maybe they themselves were on that same narrative. They were following their dreams. They were sold an idea. They were trying to realize their Disney narrative. Because everyone pretty much is trying to realize some narrative within Disney. So they realized it. I've had plenty of people who come to me, no, Sheikh, I am literally that person who tried to realize my Disney narrative. Now I'm in my late 30s, early 40s, and I'm so regretful. I wasted the past 20 years of my life. I don't know what I did with my life. I have a lot of people like that in their 40s now who say the same thing. They say the same thing. I don't know. I was like blinders on, pursuing, doing. But there was no teachers, no guides, no murabbin, nothing. No empowering of teachers. Every single one of you should have a teacher. Wallahi al-azim. A teacher, a murabbi, a guide, someone who helps you. Someone who's going to challenge your status quo, challenge your narrative, make you uncomfortable. What else do mentors do? If you go into medicine, you go to engineering, you go into academia, you go into martial arts, you go into, blue collar work, woodworking, metalworking. Every single mentor does what to their mentee? Pushes them, challenges them, makes them uncomfortable. Why? Because they're seeking excellence. Do you have that in the religious space? Do you have that in your religious journey? As Imam al-Ghazali is calling it, Sabilul Haqq, the pathway of truth. Do you have that or not? This is a question for you to answer, inshallah. So he says, وَلَا بُدَّ لِلْسَالِكِ مِنْ شَيْخٍ يُرَبِّيهِ وَيُرْشِدُهُ إِلَى سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And the principal duty of this shaykh and this teacher, this murabbi, is that they're taking you to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're guiding you to the path of Allah. So that every single juncture, when you listen to them, what they are teaching you and reminding you of, God is that way, God is that way, Allah is there, Allah is there. Don't forget, like flashing lights, Allah, 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 Allah. You could go and you can go into the depth of your personal problem, your issue, you're angry, you're vindictive, you're vengeful, you're all hot and bothered about X, Y, or Z. And then you come full circle and you go to your teacher, your murabbi or whatever, and they say, Allah, don't forget. Because there's nothing in the dunya that's worth it. I have watched people squander not 1 or 2 or 10, 20 years, 30 years of their lives, 40 years of their lives because of really bad thoughts and ideas. Jaded, angry, rejecting, vindictive, chip on their shoulder, bothered, hate the world, hate themselves, hate others because God is absent from the conversation. They're technically Muslim. So they mail it in when needed. Like salah is done. Like salah is fulfilled. So check, I did salah. I did siyam, check. You know, it's just like touch points that I touch and I do. But what about the actual tarbiyah? The actual development of your theology, your spirituality? You may have your Islam quotient, lowercase I Islam, i.e. the do's and don'ts, the halal and haram. You may be doing them technically correct. But what about your iman? As the hadith of Jibreel says, Islam, iman and ihsan. What about your iman? What do you actually believe in? Do you believe in Allah? And do you believe in everything that entails and requires when you say, I believe in God? I am a servant of God. Like when I was teaching at the Harvard Divinity School, I was teaching a graduate seminar when I was living in Boston. I remember I was teaching about theocentricity and Islamic philosophy and theology and blah, blah, blah. And I went on for like 2-3 weeks about why the nature of how Muslims are theocentric. So one particular student said to me, I have listened to you for the past 3-4 weeks talk to us about God this and God that and God this and God that. Where am I in all this? Like, where's my agency? I said, I'm sorry, I didn't get the memo that you were that important that we're supposed to be talking about you. God is the one we talk about. God is the one we care about. God is the one we serve. I am only of value or of worth the extent to which I am a servant of God, and that God truly informs every decision of my life. What intrinsic personal value does Yasir Fahmy have when Yasir Fahmy's existence is a possibility? Like my nature, my existence is, I could have been born and I could not have been born. I could have existed and I could not have existed, and it wouldn't have made any difference to anyone. It would have made no difference to the human condition whether I existed or not, correct? So how does someone whose intrinsic value is possibly existent, I'm possibly an existent being, but then I have to have a type of agency and know-how and knowledge and insight and I feel, and then we see, like Professor Charles Terrell from Princeton, he says that we used to live in the previous epoch in what was known as the age of reason, the age of enlightenment. He's like, we have now, and that was itself a flawed conception of an age. That's a whole different story. He says we have devolved this way into the epoch known as the age of feelings. See how we've devolved? You used to at least had to make an intellectual claim to your thoughts and ideas of why they should govern. You don't even need to do that anymore. You don't even need to have a smart idea or an intellectual concept or some logical reasoning. You just have to say, well, this is what I feel. And so then, therefore, feelings have become definitive. And if you argue with most people about what it is they are or what they're doing or their pursuits, they're not giving you a good rationale. They're just saying, but this is what I like. But this is what I want. But this is what I'm feeling. These are my dreams. How dare you? Do you understand how remarkably disastrous that is as an outcome for our society, our civilization? The math doesn't even have to math anymore. The equations don't have to work. 1 + 1 doesn't even need to equal 2. Khalas, it doesn't matter. It just matters like what you like and what you feel and whatever it is that you want in that place. That's more than enough. Think about most young people and their pursuits today, and then why they have this contentious relationship with the elder generation or their parents. It's because parents are getting in the way of their feelings, full stop. That's all it is, right? It's not as if like people are pursuing things with objective integrity. It's just, I have this idea of myself. I want to become X. I want to be Y. Well, that's not a reason to do something in life. That's not a reason to go and spend. Do you know how many people that I have listened to squander so much money and put their marriage and their family in debt to go get a degree, not because of any virtue or principle. It's just that I've always imagined myself to have a degree from that university, or a master's degree, or whatever, a graduate degree. I've just always seen that about myself. So, and plus, Sheikh, when we got married, it was agreed upon. We actually said a condition is that I'm going to ensure that I have this. Okay, but can you tell me a little bit more of give me something more substantial to hold on to, other than just degree for the sake of degree, master's degree or PhD for the sake of just having it. Why? But what's the purpose? What's the deeper reason? Okay, you may be able to articulate a basic logical reason, but can I challenge? Can you tell me more about God? And I mean this for every single one of you sitting, men and women. Tell me about your pursuits in lieu of Allah. In lieu of Allah. Does Allah not have expectations of us? Does Allah not have demands of us? Does Allah not have wants of us? Does Allah not compel us to exist كَيْ يُعْبَدَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, so that God is worshipped on this earth? That's why we exist. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That's why you exist, to worship. So we need a community of scholarship and teaching to ensure that, as Imam Muhammad is saying, that I have a teacher taking me, يُرْشِدُهُ إِلَى سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, guiding me to the path of God. And then everything falls in line in accordance. Then we start making the decisions of what means and what's purposeful and what's right and what's wrong and what's good. And if that becomes our shared narrative, then we have a very different ecosystem of relationships and families and so on. But when we really become theocentric, but going back to that student in that class, the problem is we don't really believe fully in the idea of theocentricity. We still want to see our agency in all this. Tell me where I am, where's my intrinsic value in all this space? Because I need God to negotiate me, because I have these wants and these dreams and these aspirations and what I feel should be. He says, وَلَا بُدَّ نعم لِأَنَّ اللَّهَ أَرْسَلَ لِلْعِبَادِ رَسُولًا. Why is he saying you need a teacher to take you to the path of Allah? لِأَنَّ اللَّهَ أَرْسَلَ لِلْعِبَادِ رَسُولًا لِلْإِرْشَادِ إِلَى سَبِيلِهِ. The reason why Allah sent the messengers in the first place was to take you to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah وَلِيُّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. Allah is the friend and the aid of the believer. He exits them from the multitudes of darkness into light. And the messengers of Allah were sent to us so that the darkness of the dunya, as it manifests in its various permutations throughout history, that you're never caught up in the multitudes of darkness, but rather you're in the path of nur, the path of light. And that's a real path and exists. And sometimes you have this idea of oh my God, we have the marriage crisis. We don't know our children are caught up in all this nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And we start to grieve about the condition of our community and the status quo. But there is one principal question that we don't seriously negotiate individually and as a collective, which is, have we centered Allah or not? That's the most operative and critical question to consider. So then he says, فإذا ارتحل صلى الله عليه وسلم فقد خلف الخلفاء في مكانه حتى يرشدوا إلى الله تعالى. So the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم passes, and what does he leave behind? إن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء. It is the scholars who are the inheritors of the prophets. The scholars, the people of knowledge, the people who can teach you about the Quran and Sunnah, the way of our fuqaha, the way of our theologians, the way of our spiritual masters. That there's a sacred 1400-year sacred tradition that has been passed down generation after generation. I hope and pray that one day all of you can take with me a class that I like to teach. Hopefully I can teach it soon, on our intellectual heritage, our actual heritage as Muslimin. And I promise you, if any of you who are not familiar with the 1400 years of the Islamic intellectual project and the heritage of Islam and Islamic scholarship, once you learn about it, you'll be blown away. Objectively, you'll be blown away. You will truly appreciate the depth and the breadth of Islamic scholarship, how rich it is. You're talking about hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of scholars that span the east to west, women and men, who have been at the forefront of teaching and educating. Do you know, just the ruwat of hadith, just the transmitters of hadith, when you look at the books of ilm al-rijal, the ilm al-rijal are the books of the narrators and transmitters of the sacred tradition. You're talking about roughly 600,000 transmitters of hadith that we know their name, we know where they lived, we know their circumstances when they were young, as they aged, who they took from, who they lived with, who they could have possibly interacted with. It's such a powerful project. It's just the hadith sciences alone with ilm al-rijal will blow your mind, because it is unparalleled. There's no other philosophy or ideology or religion or anything that has anything even close to ilm al-rijal. That's because the integrity of our scholarship is very large, it's very profound. But we're disconnected from it. We have no idea. So therefore, we will scoff at religious disciplines, or we will scoff at Islamic scholars. Like, you'll have broad, sweeping narratives like, man, you know what? The shuyukh don't get it. Just one fell swoop. The shuyukh don't get it. What does that mean, the shuyukh don't get it? It's just there's a monolith called the shuyukh. It's one broad, brushstroke. They don't get it. The shuyukh are not relevant. I don't know what this stuff means. What does that mean? Why is that relevant? Why is that language that you are saying? Why aren't you saying that about doctors and lawyers and engineers? There aren't plenty of quote unquote bad apples in each of those spaces. So why aren't they all discredited? You see what I'm talking about? And the reason being is because we still apply a certain quote-unquote academic integrity to law, to medicine, to engineering, that we don't even know to consider for Islamic learning, because we have no idea what it's even about. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what the actual process was. So we don't know how to revere or even respect it. But if we did, we would think very differently. So then he says, we'll wrap up now inshallah, because we actually started at 11 o'clock today. So we can wrap up at 12. He says, وَشَرْطُ الشَّيْخ الَّذِي يَصْلُحُ أَنْ يَكُونَ نَائِبًا لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَوَاتُ اللَّهِ وَسَلَامُهُ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَكُونَ عَالِمًا. That from the conditions, and then he mentions the conditions of the teacher that you should take, is that they are people of knowledge, that they actually have the credentials, they have the know-how. I'm telling you right now, each of you have to check the integrity of your teachers, the scholarship. That's your responsibility. And you can say, how do I know? What do I do? Exhaust yourself. Does this person have credentials? Did they study? What do other shuyukh perhaps indicate? What do more senior shuyukh in the community say? Test the integrity of your teachers. It's okay. It's your amana. It's your trust. You have to learn. There's no point in just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna. No. Use your best judgment to assess, just like you're gonna exhaust yourself. And you may not be a medical expert, but you sit there and exhaust yourself to see like what's the best possible doctor. How do you find out who's the best possible doctor? What do? You read some reviews. You look at some credentials, you listen to other people maybe that you know and that are close to, you do some due diligence, that's a reasonable due diligence, to figure out, you know what, this is the doctor who's going to do my surgery. Do the same thing with shuyukh, full stop. It's not that complicated. Whatever you apply to finding the best surgeon, apply that to finding the best shaykh. And in that, Allah will put barakah. Does that mean that you're going to get to the best surgeon? No. But you're going to have done your due diligence to the best of your ability. You've exhausted your resources to find the best possible teacher, the best possible surgeon. Apply that for Islamic teachers. But the karitha, the disaster is, the person that I take the majority of my religious guidance from is some random guy on TikTok who I just like listening to their clips because they're bombastic. I can't tell you, I mean, it pains me to watch the volume of nonsense that's pumped out on social media. The volume is alarming, and the majority of it is just empty. People who have a narrative of religion, of Islamic scholarship, that is a joke. They look the part and they speak a big game. But if you pressure test their superficial ideas of religion, and you apply and you take it to the institutions of Islamic learning across the Muslim world, not just one country, but across the Muslim world, be like, does this person know how to read and write? What are they talking about? They're sitting there and they have millions of followers. And they sit there and they are the shuyukh of the masses. And the problem is their ego is so distorted because they really believe they're on it. They're on the minhaj, they're on the whatever, blah, blah, blah. They really believe that they're on it. But they're so far off. Do you even know who these people are? Other than that they're trending or that they're famous or that they're whatever. I'll have people, forget about big names. There's literally no names, quote unquote. We're all no names, but someone who doesn't have a social media presence, who's just a nice brother in the community. Nice brother. No identifiable credentials. Maybe is a little literate, has attended some halaqat in classes and is, eager, and mashallah, Allahumma barik. But that person who doesn't know, who doesn't have the credentials, who doesn't have the authority, will speak more authoritatively than Shaykhul Islam. To say what's virtuous, what's right, what's wrong, don't do that, don't go there, come here, this is haram, this is bid'ah, that's shirk, stay away from this. Ya iskut. Like, be quiet. Don't talk, you're talking well beyond your pay grade. Do you understand, to talk and to opine about the matters of the deen? This is the weightiest matter that you can be talking about. This is not just some armchair chit-chat, chatter. This is serious. إن هذا العلم دين. إن هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. This ilm is a matter of deen. Then really, another is a scrupulous analysis of who you're taking your deen from. And anyone who stands and sits the way I'm sitting and claims to be able, you have to assess, is this person someone that I should really be taken from? That's your responsibility. Just like you're going to assess if this is the best surgeon or the best lawyer or whatever the case may be. So they have to know what they're talking about. They have to have the credentials. Coupled with their knowledge, and I guess I'll close with this, is you have to look at their akhlaq. As Imam Muhammad says, you look at their ilm and you look at their akhlaq. Look at their knowledge and look at their character. How do they conduct themselves? How do they behave? How do they speak? How are they just as human beings? You all know what good character is. It's not really complicated. Everyone knows what good character is. Does this person have good character? Are they unhinged? Sometimes you'll have someone who claims to be a person, but they're unhinged. They're unwieldy. They're erratic. They have a huge ego. They can slice you down in a second. If you just cross them the wrong way, they will devour you, etc. Just things like, man, that didn't feel right. Really? Now, by the way, I just want to highlight something. Shuyukh are not angels. So a sheikh could make a mistake. A sheikh could make a misstep. That's all very plausible. Sheikh took a wrong step. But it's one thing for a mistake to happen versus an endemic character trait. That this person this person's a little bit of a nasab. They kind of lie often. I find them lying. Like, there's lying, there's nasb, there's trickery, the person has fatal character flaws. That's very different than a person making a mistake. Those are two different things, and I hope you understand that. Because كل بني آدم خطأ. Every son of Adam is khata. I'll tell you a funny story. When we were younger, someone close to me saw a sheikh in salah look like this. Like they're standing. And so this person was not focusing on the salah, they were focusing on the sheikh. And the sheikh did this. Right? And so this person's life was devastated. Do you know what I'm talking about? This person's life was devastated. Came out of Salah, oh my God, can you believe the Sheikh, I was standing next to him and he went like this. Like, khalas, this is the Dajjal. Like, you know, this. Huh? He did a cross right away. So anyway, this person was younger and just could not believe, like, man, how could the Sheikh do something like that? Like, this is the khalas, this is like a real problem, it's a catastrophe. So I remember they go to someone very specific, someone who's very close to me. And this person was older and had wisdom. And he asked me, he's like, can you believe it? I saw Sheikh so-and-so do this. And they were in Salah and they looked to their right and like, what does that mean? Like, like they were having a crisis of faith. So all this person said to them was like, he made a mistake, what's the big deal? But what you know of him every single day is that he's a man of honor, a man of character, a man of knowledge, a man of this, that. You know that the integrity of this person's intact, that they may have had a moment of ghafla, of heedlessness, of forgetfulness, a weakness, whatever, something overtook them, they may have took a misstep. Happens. That happens. So just when Imam Abu Hamid or the scholars in general, when they talk about a person of knowledge and a person of akhlaq, you have to, when it comes to character, distinguish between someone who has fatal flaws, someone who has real character flaws, versus someone who may obviously periodically make a mistake, and we're all of those who make mistakes. May Allah forgive us and rectify our conditions. And may Allah grant us the best of teachers, the best of scholars, the best of murabbeen, the best of guides, the best of those who will develop us and hold the mirrors to our faces. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. May Allah bless Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali is a giant amongst giants. Wallahi, he is a man of knowledge that is truly in his own category and rank. May Allah bless him. And may, we look at us, just a group of believers in Ramadan, in a masjid in New Jersey, in Patterson, and we're studying Imam al-Ghazali. And we are just a drop in the bucket of Muslims across the world right now who are studying the works of Imam al-Ghazali. So you are a part of a sacred womb of scholarship. It's a very beautiful womb. When you're in the world, when you have the same language and the same names of ulama and scholars who span the continents, alhamdulillah, you're in a blessed orbit. So may Allah keep us always in the orbit of our teachers of Islamic scholarships. As the ulama say, kun aliman aw muta'alliman aw khadiman lahuma. Be a scholar, be a student of knowledge, or be someone who gives khidmah, who serves the entire project of Islamic learning. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put all of us in the orbit of Islamic learning. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullah khair wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ya Allah. Assalamu alaikum. Good. How are you? Alhamdulillah.
Exhaust your resources, right? Inshallah, we'll continue in 10 minutes to Surah Al-Buruj, inshallah. يلا بسم الله. بسم الله. Surah Nuh. Inshallah, we're starting from Surah Nuh in just a moment.
I don't think we got asked. So when we were last time, like on the Monday night when I was here, we were on
No, we weren't. I read the other day. You know what? You can't even ask me. Maybe Luqman. I read Luqman the other time. So we're somewhere here. I mean, the thing is, don't ask me because دائما بخربش بين الختمة الأولى والثانية.
So if we get to السجدة, if you don't mind.
No, of course. خلاص. Into the second ختمة is your guys' ختمة, not mine. خلاص. يلا بسم الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه أن أنذر قومك من قبل أن يأتيهم عذاب أليم. قال يا قوم إني لكم نذير مبين أن اعبدوا الله واتقوه وأطيعون يغفر لكم من ذنوبكم ويؤخركم إلى أجل مسمى إن أجل الله إذا جاء لا يؤخر لو كنتم تعلمون. قال رب إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا وإني كلما دعوتهم لتغفر لهم جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم وأصروا واستكبروا استكبارا ثم إني دعوتهم جهارا ثم إني أعلنت لهم وأسررت لهم إسرارا فقلت استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا ما لكم لا ترجون لله وقارا وقد خلقكم أطوارا ما لكم لا ترجون لله وقارا وقد خلقكم أطوارا ألم تروا كيف خلق الله 7 سماوات طباقا وجعل القمر فيهن نورا وجعل الشمس سراجا والله أنبتكم من الأرض نباتا ثم يعيدكم فيها ويخرجكم إخراجا والله جعل لكم الأرض بساطا لتسلكوا منها سبلا فجاجا قال نوح رب إنهم عصوني واتبعوا من لم يزده ماله وولده إلا خسارا
ومكروا مكرا كبارا وقالوا لا تذرن آلهتكم ولا تذرن ودا ولا سواعا ولا يغوث ويعوق ونسرا وقد أضلوا كثيرا ولا تزد الظالمين إلا ضلالا مما خطيئاتهم أغرقوا فأدخلوا نارا فلم يجدوا لهم من دون الله أنصارا وقال نوح رب لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا إنك إن تذرهم يضلوا عبادك ولا يلدوا إلا فاجرا كفارا رب اغفر لي ولوالدي ولمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا وأنه كان يقول سفيهنا على الله شططا وأنا ظننا أن لن تقول الإنس والجن على الله كذبا وأنه كان رجال من الإنس يعوذون برجال من الجن فزادوهم رهقا وأنهم ظنوا كما ظننتم أن لن يبعث الله أحدا وأنا لمسنا السماء فوجدناها ملئت حرسا شديدا وشهبا وأنا كنا نقعد منها مقاعد للسمع فمن يستمع الآن يجد له شهابا رصدا وأنا لا ندري أشر أريد بمن في الأرض أم أراد بهم ربهم رشدا وأنا من الصالحون ومنا دون ذلك كنا طرائق قددا وأنا ظننا أن لن نعجز الله في الأرض ولن نعجزه هربا وأنا لما سمعنا الهدى آمنا به فمن يؤمن بربه فلا يخاف بخسا ولا رهقا وأنا منا المسلمون ومنا القاسطون فمن أسلم فأولئك تحروا رشدا وأما القاسطون فكانوا لجهنم حطبا وأن لو استقاموا على الطريقة لأسقيناهم ماء غدقا لنفتنهم فيه ومن يعرض عن ذكر ربه يسلكه عذابا صعدا وأن المساجد لله فلا تدعوا مع الله أحدا وأنه لما قام عبد الله يدعوه كادوا يكونون عليه لبدا قل إنما أدعو لربي ولا أشرك به أحدا قل إني لا أملك لكم ضرا ولا رشدا قل إني لن يجيرني من الله أحد ولن أجد من دونه ملتحدا إلا بلاغا من الله ورسالاته ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإن له نار جهنم خالدين فيها أبدا حتى إذا رأوا ما يوعدون فسيعلمون من أضعف ناصرا وأقل عددا قل إن أدري أقريب ما توعدون أم يجعل له ربي أمدا عالم الغيب فلا يظهر على غيبه أحدا إلا من ارتضى من رسول فإنه يسلك من بين يديه ومن خلفه رصدا ليعلم أن قد أبلغوا رسالات ربهم وأحاط بما لديهم وأحصى كل شيء عددا الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله إن شاء الله we'll do مزمل مدثر and then Sheikh Fadl will do Surah Qiyamah إن شاء الله. Sheikh Fadl. Everyone's calling each other Sheikh. الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا، نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا، أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا. إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا. إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا، واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا. رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا. واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا. وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا. إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما. يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا. إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا. فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا. فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا. السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا. إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا. إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك، والله يقدر الليل والنهار. علم أن لن تحصوه فتاب عليكم فاقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن. علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله. فاقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا. وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا. واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم